6 months passed. To the outside world, Seraphina Blackwood was living a fairy tale. She was the elegant wife of a titan, her face gracing magazine covers, her days filled with charity galas and art auctions. But her life was a performance, and Elias was her director. He was a constant, silent presence. A text message with a simple question mark would appear if she was 5 minutes late for an event. A single knowing glance across a crowded room was enough to remind her who was in control. Her gilded cage had no bars, but the walls were closing in. Julian, blinded by love, saw none of it. He saw a wife who was perhaps a bit more reserved, more serious than when they first met, but he chalked it up to the pressures of their new life. He showered her with affection, with gifts, with a trust so absolute it felt like a hot poker against Sarah's conscience every single day. The first test of Elias's control came during a board meeting for the Blackwood Foundation. Sarah, using her art curator background, proposed a new initiative to fund artists from underserved communities. It was a project she was genuinely passionate about, a small way to connect with the world she truly came from. The board was impressed. Julian was beaming with pride. That evening, Elias cornered her in the library of their penthouse. "That was a bold move today," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "It's for charity, Elias. It's a good thing," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "Your job is not to have bold ideas," he countered, stepping closer. "Your job is to be a beautiful, supportive, and silent wife. You are to be an asset, not a variable. Do you understand? No more initiatives, no more drawing attention to yourself." The threat was unspoken but clear. Step out of line, and the perfect world Julian built for you disappears. Defeated, Sarah withdrew the proposal the next day, telling a confused Julian that she felt she had overreached. The light in his eyes dimmed for a moment, and it broke her heart. If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. The pressure was suffocating. Sarah felt herself disappearing, replaced entirely by the hollow shell of Seraphina. She was lonely, trapped, and desperate for a connection to someone who wasn't Julian, someone who wouldn't look at her with the weight of perfect love and total trust. She found that connection in the most dangerous place possible. At a gallery opening, she met a charismatic artist named Franco. He was everything Julian wasn't: bohemian, reckless, and free. He saw the sadness behind her perfect smile. He didn't care about the Blackwood name. He was interested in the woman. It started innocently, a shared conversation about art, a coffee, then a secret visit to his studio. In that chaotic, paint-splattered space, she wasn't Seraphina, the billionaire's wife. She was just Sarah. She could breathe. One afternoon, fueled by loneliness and a desperate need to feel something real, she crossed the line. The affair was a reckless, self-destructive act, but it was hers. The only secret she had that Elias didn't control, or so she thought. 2 weeks into the affair, a plain manila envelope was delivered to her. Inside there were no words, just high-resolution photographs, pictures of her and Franco, leaving his studio, kissing in a secluded alley. Her blood ran cold. She knew instantly that Elias had been watching her all along. He hadn't just been controlling her, he had been waiting for her to break. That night he found her on the terrace, the photos clutched in her hand. "Disappointed, Seraphina?" he asked, a cruel smirk on his face. But not surprised. A woman who can lie about her entire identity can certainly lie about her vows. "What do you want, Elias?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. "More money? Do you want to tell Julian?" "Tell him?" Elias laughed, a chilling, bitter sound. "Oh no, that would be too quick. That would be a mercy." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You and I are going to be working much more closely now. You see, I have certain business interests, competitors of Julian's who would pay a great deal for information, a whisper about a deal falling through, a hint about a new acquisition. You are going to be my inside source, my spy in your own husband's life." The horror of it washed over her. He wasn't just blackmailing her anymore. He was forcing her to actively betray Julian, to dismantle the empire her husband had built. If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Sarah was now trapped in a nightmare beyond her wildest imagination. She began feeding Elias small, insignificant pieces of information, trying to placate him, but he wanted more. He wanted the details of a major tech acquisition Julian was planning, a deal that would reshape the industry. Giving him that information would cost Julian hundreds of millions of dollars and damage his reputation irreparably. Desperate, Sarah started to fight back in the only way she could, by investigating Elias himself. Who was this man? Why was his hatred for Julian so personal, so venomous? She used a burner phone and encrypted software, skills she never thought she'd need, to hire a discreet digital investigator, paying him with a piece of jewelry she had secretly sold. She needed leverage of her own. The information came back a week later, and it was a bombshell that shattered her understanding of everything. Elias wasn't just a loyal employee. He was Julian's illegitimate half-brother. His full name was Elias Vance, the same last name as her own fake identity. It was a coincidence so profound it felt like a twist of fate. His father, the great patriarch of the Blackwood family, had cast him and his mother aside, leaving them with nothing. Elias had clawed his way up, eventually getting a job inside Blackwood Industries, his entire life a long, patient game of revenge against the beloved, legitimate son who had gotten everything. Suddenly, it all made sense. Elias didn't want to just expose her. He wanted to use her as a tool to ruin Julian's life from the inside out, to prove that his perfect world was just as fragile and corrupt as his own. That night, armed with this new terrifying knowledge, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't tell Julian the truth, not yet. He would see it as a web of lies, with her at the center. She had to expose Elias, but she had to do it herself. She arranged a meeting with Elias, pretending to have the information he wanted about the tech acquisition. They met in a secure, soundproof conference room at Blackwood Tower, a room she knew was equipped with audio and video recording capabilities that only Julian and the board chairman could access. "I have the details of the acquisition," she said, her voice steady. "But first, you're going to tell me why you're doing this. This isn't about my secret anymore, is it? This is about you. This is about your father." Elias froze, his smug demeanor cracking. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I, Elias Vance," she said, letting his real name hang in the air between them. "You've spent your whole life in the shadows, hating him for a life you thought you deserved. You don't want to protect Julian. You want to destroy him, and you were going to use me to do it." As Elias's face contorted with rage, Sarah continued, laying out his entire plan, his entire history. What she didn't tell him was that she had used her own leverage, a quiet threat to expose his affair with a board member's wife, to get the board chairman to activate the room's recording system. Everything Elias said, every confession, every threat was being captured. When he finally realized he had been played, it was too late. Security, alerted by the chairman, entered the room. It was over. Later that evening, Sarah stood in the penthouse waiting for Julian. He walked in, his face a mask of confusion, pain, and disbelief. The chairman had shown him the recording. He knew everything. About Elias, about his father's secret, and about Sarah's affair. He looked at her, the adoration in his eyes gone, replaced by a cold, deep hurt. "The lies," he said, his voice cracking. "All of it, from the very beginning." "Who are you?" "My name is Sarah," she said, tears finally streaming down her face. "And I did a terrible thing. I lied to you, and I betrayed you. But everything I just did, I did it to protect you from him. I know it may not be enough, but it's the truth." The fairy tale was over. The secrets were out. All that was left was the wreckage. They stood in the ruins of their marriage, two strangers who knew each other's darkest truths. The question was no longer about deception. It was about whether there was anything left to save.